We are live and we are ready to go. Welcome to the fourth episode of the School Marketing Show Live. My name is Mia. I'm Final Sight's Director of Demand Generation. And as always, I am joined by my brilliant co-host, Kristen Doverspike, our Inbound Marketing Manager.
Hi, everyone. Now, we're joining you on a Monday, which is kind of a bit of a change from what we've been doing, but we took a bit of a hiatus. Last week, we were just working on some really great content that we're so excited to get out. So we're joining you today on a Monday. We're so excited to be here, and we're hoping that you're excited to learn with us about how to communicate in uncertain times. Now, if you're new to our show, this is episode 4, but if you have not come here before, at Final Sight, professional development and education are really a huge piece of our core culture. So the show is just a way for us to keep our schools and districts around the world informed and engaged on best practices when it relates to marketing, communications, admissions, advancement, you name it, we're here to talk about it. And each episode, we go through a specific format just to help you with your own, following along with your strategies as we're going. We go through the who, what, when, where, why, and most importantly, how for every strategy we talk about per show. So we chose this live format just really to provide a quick Q&A. Please, engage with us, whether you're watching live or if you watch a recording later. We would love to hear from you on any topics that you're interested in learning about. We chose today's topic and our previous ones, but we really let them fuel our strategy based on what we hear different school professionals talking about and what they're interested in. So we would love to hear from you. Now, last episode, if you were able to join us, we chatted about the top of the funnel, so TOFU, and really what type of content you should use to reach families at the beginning of their journey. So as we discussed, communicating the right thing at the right time is everything, especially now. So that brings us to our topic for this week. In light of COVID-19 and your plans for the fall as we look forward to it, your communications plan has never been more important. Today, we're going to talk through some of the most important points to consider as you build your communications plans. So if you're here with us, please stop what you're doing. We're so excited to talk to you about this and strategize together. So I'll let Mia kick it off with the why.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kristen. So first and foremost, why do we need to think about communications plans differently? I think this one is really a no-brainer. But at the end of the day, I think as marketers, as communicators, we often have a tendency in our work lives to think about communications as a one-way street. Very rarely would we ever initiate a conversation with someone and thinking that conversation is only going to go one way. But when it comes to posting on social media, creating emails, sharing things on our website, we often don't think about how does this communication offer an opportunity for engagement from our community? And how does this communication inspire a conversation? And, whether you're considering a fully remote learning for the fall, or you're thinking about hybrid or maybe a very modified in-person structure, the role of communications isn't going to change, but it is going to be different. We need to think about how we can use communications to supplement or completely replace the in-person experiences that people are missing. And a lot of those in-person experiences require two-way communications. This means you're going to need a plan for being more active on social media. Your website is going to have an extremely tactical role here, and your email communications are going to be more intentional than ever. So as we've been saying here at Final Sight, now is not the time to look in the rear view. Unfortunately, in this case, hindsight is not 2020. We need to look ahead and have a clear vision of what our fall is going to look like, and therefore what our communications will look like. So I think everyone right now has probably 2, 3, or 4 scenarios that they're kind of playing around with, depending on what we see happen over the next couple of months. But regardless of that, Kristen, what should people be thinking about and definitely including in their communications plan for the fall?
Yeah, absolutely. And like Mia said, it's not just one way anymore. So as you're building a communications plan, you don't want to focus just on sharing information. It's really evolving as we're moving forward. And this is actually something that Mia had shared with me that was really interesting in terms of the origins of the word communication. So the term communication actually derived from the Latin word communis, meaning common or sharing, and communicare, meaning to share, divide out, communicate. join, unite, participate in, and so on. So when you think of communications plans of the past, words like join, unite, participate were not likely words that you were thinking of, just because of the way that they used to be in terms of its nature. It was one way, it was more information sharing, but now we really do need to think about that participation piece that really comes from the core definition of communications. So as we're a little more isolated now, there's never been a more essential time to keep families informed and engaged. So when we think about your own school or district's communications plans, I want you to first, focus on how you can use your digital campus, which is something we've been talking a lot about lately, to offer avenues for connection, participation, and conversation, even when face-to-face opportunities are limited. So no matter what format you're looking at for the fall, whether it's a hybrid, if you're just sticking with distance learning, or if you're looking to go more in person, it's all very much changing. So we actually defined 7 specific things that you can really use to get your communications plan ready. So I encourage you to grab your pencil right now. We're going to talk through them. I'll actually let Mia talk through our first tip about using opinions from your community.
Yeah, so tip number 1. So obviously we're coming off quite a turbulent spring where I think everyone was putting Band-Aids in place, and we were all just kind of doing our best. Like as parents, we were doing our best. As teachers, communicators, administrators, I think we were all just doing our best to get through. But now with that behind us, we, just doing our best to get through isn't going to be enough, especially for private schools with high tuition, right? We need to make sure we have something in place that makes our community happy. So what better way to ask them what they liked and didn't like about our communication styles from earlier this year? So first tip out of the 7 is to make sure you create a survey and send it out to the key members of your community and ask them, how do they prefer to receive communications? Which platforms that your school uses do they check the most often? Do they find the most helpful? One other tip here, if you are creating a survey, keep in mind that your parents, your teachers, even your students, if you want to pull them, they're really busy in a lot of cases now that it's summer, will likely be doing this from their phone and are going to be probably only devoting a couple of minutes to that. So keeping your questions about 3 to 10 will keep your survey to about 2 minutes. Now, again, 10 open-ended questions is going to look a lot different than 10 yes or no questions, but I recommend to take that survey yourself, make sure that it is definitely under that 2 to 3 minute mark to make sure you'll actually get the optimal number of responses. And of course, if you're a Final Site client, you can use the forms module to create that survey and share it with your community directly. Number 2, Kristen?
Now, number 2 is to create a centralized communications hub on your website. And this is one of the most important ones, just because, especially now, just saying head over to the website is not enough for your families. Going to the website and having them kind of fish around for the information they need is not only frustrating, but just not useful for you as your school or district moves forward. You really want to be able to provide a specific place for them and for yourself and your own team as you put out information, just one centralized hub for putting out that information. So that's one of the most important ones. We would definitely recommend just going to your school or district's website, creating a specific hub. You can do all sorts of things there. You can have a form for opinions, just like Mia said, if you needed to get any information from your community. You can have live updates if you have anything like that. Include links to your social media posts. There's so many things you can do with this centralized hub. So definitely recommend looking into that. Now, just kind of thinking about social media, Mia, what's tip number 3?
Tip number 3, and I think this is one of the items where if you didn't previously have it in a communications plan, it'll definitely be on your communications plan for the fall. Absolutely essential. Can't ignore this. You need to create channels for feedback. So again, typically where we're used to just sending emails, posting on social, and kind of just turning away and saying, okay, like that communication's out, your job is no longer done. I'm sorry, I literally can't get over the fact that if I sit far enough back, it looks like I don't have arms.
It's the good use of Zoom backgrounds.
Zoom background technical difficulties. So anyways, you're creating channels for feedback. So you want to make sure that people have the opportunity to ask questions and engage with the communications that you're putting out there. So we've been saying now for a few years at Final Site here, like you need to have a plan in place for if someone comments or asks a question on a social media post. You need to be prepared to say, okay, well, what if someone answers a negative, asks something negative, or what if someone says something negative? You need to have a plan in place to address that. And I think that's one of those things where everyone has always been like, I have so much on my plate, I have no time to respond to comments. That is now a key piece of your strategy, whether you are remote, hybrid, or a modified in person in particular, because these people who can no longer just pop by an office and say like, hey, I have a question, are relying on the internet to get immediate gratification. And unfortunately, as our generations get younger, we get more and more impatient. So millennial parents in particular, when they're asking a question, like they want a response like that, especially on social media platforms like Twitter. So we need to make sure we have time devoted to that on a weekly and daily basis, and also a strategy for positive, negative, and certain types of comments that our community might be asking. The other thing that we can do is, like Kristen said, add a form to our communication hub where people can ask questions at any time. We saw a great example actually on Blair Academy's website today. It was actually on their digital campus page for admissions. And at any point in the admissions process, you're just prompted with a form on the right-hand side to just ask a question. I think there's nothing that makes something feel more transparent and open than saying, hey, ask us a question whenever, wherever, and we'll get back to you. Of course, with that, you're going to want to set the expectation of how soon someone will get back to you and be able to meet that expectation as well. And I guess continuing here on social media, Kristen, what's tip number 4?
Yeah, really just kind of rounding out the whole sense that you really need to be building that community, answering comments, encouraging engagement, building a sense of community on social media, which is tip number 4, is very important here. So not even just posting on your organic channels, which you may start to find, and we'll get into this a little bit later, you may find that you're not getting as much engagement on your organic posts, but I encourage you to maybe experiment with Facebook groups. That's a really great way to build a small community, whether it's a parents' Facebook group or even prospective families' Facebook group if you're a private school. Really just talking with your community and asking direct questions in there is a great way to stay engaged. Again, like Mia said, make sure you're responding to comments. And thirdly, just think about how much you're posting, what types of content you're posting. Here at Final Site, we recommend like the 70-20-10 rule or rule of thirds. So really the majority of your content should be content that is meant to engage, or just make sure it's content that's not necessarily promoting anything. You can maybe use that 10% per week to promote maybe a virtual open house or things like that. But if you are looking to keep your community engaged with you, make sure you're building that up. Make sure the majority of the content you're posting really is encouraging that engagement. So maybe asking for responding comments, things like that. Say, throw your favorite activity for the summer in the comments. It's very simple like that. That's a great way to just make sure you're building up engagement even right now, as most schools are taking a bit of a break for the summer months. So just on the sense of community, Mia, how do you celebrate that community, which is our tip number 5?
I think, celebrating your community is something we should be doing no matter what. And I think I keep saying, so often we say now more than ever, now more than ever. Saying now more than ever is a nuanced way of saying you should have been doing this all along, but now that it's absolutely essential, yes, you must be doing this. And celebrating your community is absolutely one of those things. So making sure you find ways to celebrate your faculty, your teachers, your students, and someone who you might not have previously celebrated on social media, but parents. Parents, especially in remote and hybrid learning scenarios, especially parents of littles, have a new role in the household. So celebrating those parents and what they're doing to ensure that distance learning is successful at home is really key. So doing something simple like Feature Friday and featuring a different member of your community every single week gives you a wonderful way to highlight the amazing people in your community, how you've adapted to distance learning, and it kind of builds that sense of pride and that sense of community, because everyone, anytime you post anything about a student, a teacher, a faculty member, a parent, everyone in that community, when they love that person, comes and comments and likes it and shares it. And yes, that's really great for building community. But if we take a step back and look at it through our admissions lens, we can all say, ooh, that's really good for organic growth. That's really good for getting our name out there. So that one in particular, again, has a double-sided benefit where we're engaging our community by celebrating them and making them feel appreciated. But we're also being able to build our organic growth. And I will say across the board, posts about your community consistently get the most engagement out of anything. So going beyond just a Feature Friday, featuring members of your community, 2 or 3 days a week is great. adding them to your Instagram stories, and then even saving them to your highlights there as well. So the more, the merrier in that case. Next one, Kristen, tip number 6.
So tip number 6 is to develop a new community-first communications plan. So as we talked about in the beginning, you know, communications plans used to be a little more one-sided. It was more about getting information out there. But now as we are talking more about this community-first mindset, really think about your community first when you're getting your information out there. Think about what platforms they're using. You know, are your parents more likely to be on Facebook over something else, which they probably are because we are finding more parents are on Facebook, and what types of content they really depend on. And if you think with that community first mindset, it will help fuel what kind of content you need to put out and where. So think about your communication schedule, which we'll actually get into a little bit later on how you can decide when to put out this content, and just think about those audiences first, and that'll help fuel your strategy moving forward. And then our last tip, just to round things out, with 7, is to track engagement, to measure success, and then adjust as necessary. So take a look at your analytics. Are you finding traffic that's coming to your communications hub? If not, maybe there's something else you can do there to drive more traffic, whether it is promoting that page in an email newsletter, maybe ramping up your SEO a little bit. So take a look at your web analytics. If you're finding that your social media posts maybe aren't performing, see maybe about A/B testing, you know, test different times of day, test different types of content, maybe video resonates more with your audience. So it's really important to track this engagement so that you can adjust moving forward and better serve your families and communities moving forward. So that really rounded out what types of content should make up your communications plan. It is a lot to think about, so I hope this was useful, but just moving along with our who, what, when, where, why, Mia, when should these schools and districts be communicating?
Yeah, and I think when they should be communicating definitely piggybacks off, you know, number 7, tracking engagement and measuring success. If you have historically sent emails on Friday, but no one was opening them, stop sending emails on Friday. Pick another day of the week. So there's one piece of it there. But, you know, making sure that when you're communicating that you have a cadence. That is the most important thing. That if I could, I think I mentioned that in every webinar, every single thing that we share, every blog post, pick a cadence and stick to it. And that really helps round out your communications plan, because if you can say, okay, for every single open house, we're sending 3 emails and we're going to have, you know, 6 social media posts and 1 ad, it helps you just define what your calendar looks like, because we do only have so many blocks of content that we can share on a weekly basis, right? You know, I know we'll get to this in a little bit, but across the board, we pretty much just say, like, you know, no more than like 3 emails per constituent group on a weekly basis. And even that is pushing it. Like 1 to 2 is really the best. And then of course on social media, we have 1 post per day on Facebook, 1 to 2 on LinkedIn. I think it's 5 to 10 on Twitter, and really just 1 a day on Instagram. So like where we're communicating with our family, it's like we have a very finite number of opportunities to be able to do that. So when we do it, we want to make sure it's at the right place, on the right platform, to the right people, which really brings us to our next 2 points, Kristen, which is who should we reach and where should we be trying to reach them? Which I know is a very open-ended question, but I do think that there are some best practices to consider here, especially as we look at the fall.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it goes exactly with what you were just saying, Mia. So when we're thinking about who we should reach, really think first about how you can segment your content and determine what audience should be receiving it. You don't want information overload. So you don't want to be sending 5 emails a week to the entire list of contacts that you have with information that may not be relevant to them, because really that goes hand in hand with your overall engagement and whether or not they're finding your content useful, which really is a big piece of your overall feeling of community, especially now as we're not so much in person. So think about all of your content, whether it's your email newsletters, information that you use to update on your website, maybe your social media posts. Determine what audience should be receiving it and who would be finding it useful. And then you can really move from there. So let's first outline who you are communicating with on each channel. So like I mentioned before, and ensure that there's an omni-channel approach just overall to reach all stakeholders and constituents without overwhelming them. So this goes right back to what Mia was saying, probably maximum of 3 emails per week per constituent group. Again, with social media, we have a specific recommended cadence there, 1 to 2 posts a day on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram once a day, 5 or more on Twitter. And we have a lot of information about that on Final Site's blog. But just think about all that content, segment it appropriately, and then you will more accurately reach your intended audiences, which then just kind of goes a little bit further into where you can reach them. So for each type of communication that you're thinking about with your overall plan moving for fall, I want you to write down the goal of that piece of communication. So think about, is it meant for inspiration or information or engagement? And really write down those goals first, because that will help you move forward, because not every piece of content needs to be shared on every channel every time. So you can use a communications hub to aggregate everything in a single location. That really is that hub mindset. Please feel free to put all of your information there. That's great. But for everything else, really think about that goal that you've written down. So website, again, everything can really fit on there. That's your overall hub of where your families and community can go to find that information. For social media, you can't really rely on it for important information. Now, while we do expect kind of instant gratification, we want to know everything right away, social media shouldn't be your first stop for that type of information. Make sure you're first updating your website, and then social media can be secondary, but really your number one goal with social media should be engagement and that two-way feedback. That's really the overall goal of what we're talking about today. Now, if you have a mobile app, that's really great for essential updates. Your website website information can be delivered through push notifications and personalized settings. So that's really great for important information. Your email really should have a retroactive and proactive communication. So it's great if you want to reflect on information that was already shared throughout the week and then maybe looking ahead at the next week, but you shouldn't expect emails to be opened right away. So if it is a very important piece of information that needs to get out right away, maybe think more about your mobile app and website communications over email, and think about email more looking at the past and then looking forward to the future. And again, that 3-week per max email cadence. Now, page pops are also a really great thing to take advantage of. If you are a Finalsite client and are on the Composer platform, you can use page pops that are tailored by page. So they show differently in portals. If you do have important information on a specific page that you want to get in front of the eyes of website visitors, that's a really great way to do that types of communication as well. So I know I just provided a lot of information, and I hope that you found this useful, but really an important question that we need to ask next is how to break through the noise. So Mia, how can everyone take this information for their school or districts and make sure that they're getting that content in front of their audiences?
Absolutely. And this is a question we get all the time, is how do I break through the noise? Because, you know, in our email inboxes and on social media, you know, we're not just competing with our, you know, direct competitors. I say all the time, we're competing with cute photos of dogs, you know, funny videos, information from Facebook groups, posts from friends or family. And we need to find a way to cut through that. So before I get into that, I do want to also say, like, this is a culture that demands on-demand content. We want to be able to find what we want when it's convenient for us. Meaning, even when you're using this strategic communications plan to effectively deliver content to the right person at the right time, we also need to make sure all of that is available on demand, which definitely directly goes back to what you were just saying of having your website as this one-stop shop, but not a cluttered and chaotic place. But think about how you can structure that communications hub, that admissions hub, a fun, you know, an alumni hub, where you can say, hey, just go to this page, you can find anything you need, and it has a very clean navigation, because in that way you don't have to break through the noise. You're just saying, hey, go here, this is going to have everything you need to know. And I wanted to round that out actually with a statistic from our inbound marketing benchmark report from last year, where I had our product team analyze 500 million emails sent through the Finalsite email platform. And that resulted in an average of a 49% open rate and a 6% click-through rate. I want to share that because I think a lot of schools and districts rely on email to get the important message to their community, but a 49% open rate across the board is definitely of a concern to me when we're relying on email so much, which is definitely why having a website hub and a mobile app and all those additional communication tools are so important, because we can't guarantee that everyone is going to open an email, even if we craft like the best subject line. Like, I can tell you all the tips to cut through the noise, but if you just have like a disengaged community for one reason or another, maybe you have just spammed them so much over the years or whatever it may be, they're getting too much information from teachers, you need to make sure that you have that place where they can go and get the information on demand. There's a reason why Netflix has been so successful, because it's much easier to watch an entire season of a show in one day than to watch it week by week when that TV show wants to come out on cable. So just keep that in mind as you're kind of prioritizing where you're going to focus your efforts. I, time and time again, would definitely recommend focus on building that amazing website page first, so that when you are sharing updates and sharing things with your community, you can just be like, well, it's on the website, it's on this page, you can find it in the email section. That being said, a few tips to break through the noise. If you're like, no, Mia, I just want to continue sending emails and posting on social media no matter what my engagement is. Using video, obviously, is a great way to cut through the noise. In emails, using Zoom to pre-record a video, super effective. And what I love about video marketing right now is no one is expecting high quality content. Like for years, there has been this insane pressure to produce like this amazing video with drone shots, like beautiful pictures of the campus. And now it's like, well, a talking head on Zoom works just as great. So in a way, the expectations of video are very low right now. So if you've always been a school that never had the budget or the time, there's never been a better time to rely on video. So recording something on Zoom, also using free tools like Vidyard, Soapbox, and Drift Video, also make it really easy to embed video in email as well. A really good tip that you might not be considering is you can break through the noise simply by beating Facebook algorithms. If you have not created a Facebook group for your school, for different groups at your school, such as parents versus alumni versus prospective families, engaging them in a Facebook group, Facebook's algorithm favors content in groups above content from brands or even just friends on Facebook nowadays. And then there's that special little group area where you can just filter through all the content from the groups that you're a member of. So that's a really good way to just break through the noise. I guess it's kind of like a cheat. Like you don't need your Facebook page. If you use a Facebook group, you can reach people much more effectively. With live video on social media, people get push notifications when you go live. So again, that's a really nice way to get people engaged, make sure they see your content. And then something else is, again, I go back to that cadence, and I'm a broken record, but the more consistent you are in doing something, whether it's going live on Facebook with daily announcements, sending an email at the same time every Friday with a consistent subject line, or always updating your website at a particular time and day, people become used to that. And not only can that help you from an algorithm perspective on social media, but it also just gets people looking for that content, even if they're going to catch it on demand. And then, of course, if nothing you do is breaking through the noise, it might be time to experiment, try something new, try something different. Even if you're a small team, just get out there, be creative, have some fun. And the more, I think at the end of the day, what makes good content is good storytelling. And I think that the more that schools can embrace and use the voices of their students, their alumni, their faculty, their teachers, and their parents to help facilitate that story, no matter what the platform, no matter what the communication is, the more effective it's going to be from a retention standpoint and an enrollment standpoint. So that is Communicating During Uncertain Times, episode 4 of the School Marketing Show. Kristen, closing announcements.
Yes, so we are still gearing up with our summer camp, which is our first 6-week course that is kicking off on July 13th with our first video lesson. But really, you can join at any time because they are pre-recorded video lessons. We will also have weekly networking sessions that are time zone friendly. So we're very excited for summer camp if you're looking to get a head start on planning for fall, because really the planning for September is starting to really happen now. So I encourage you, if you haven't already, to head over to finalsite.com/summer, and you can check out all of the information there. You can see our weekly agenda, and you can register for free and save your spot now. So we really are looking forward to that 6-week course. We hope to see you there. And just a quick announcement for the School Marketing Show Live. We are taking a 2-week hiatus. We will be returning on July 24th with a show about your virtual admissions checklist. So we'll talk about the new role of virtual open houses and website must-haves for engagement. So we're very excited for that if you want to tune back in on July 24th at 1:30 p.m. So that's it for announcements. I don't know if you have anything else, Mia. I think.
No, I don't think I have any announcements. I don't know if it was you or me who just froze there for a hot second here at the end. But
okay.
It could have been me, remote life. But no, I think that's wonderful. I'm really looking forward to July 24th and that episode. And I know that'll kind of be if I could tease for just a second, we are going to be doing a masterclass on virtual admissions, hopefully getting that up in the next day or so. So really excited about that, excited about summer camp. I'm excited for our 2-week hiatus because it means some time off for the two of us after a crazy busy 6 months. I'm sure everyone can attest and relate to that. So thanks so much for joining. If you have any questions after you watch that, send me an email, send Kristen an email, or leave a comment below. And hopefully we'll see you at one of our events.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, everyone.